Welcome to the News Hour. Donald Trump was in court in Washington, D.C. today, while his attorneys argued the former president is immune from federal prosecution connected to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol.
The three-judge appeals panel seems skeptical of the Trump legal team's argument that Mr. Trump was acting in his official capacity as president to, quote, ensure election integrity when he undermined the results of the 2020 presidential election.
I think it's paradoxical to say that his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed allows him to violate criminal laws.
NPR Justice correspondent Carrie Johnson was at the courthouse today and is following all of the latest developments. Carrie, thanks so much for being with us. And we should say this case is not just about Donald Trump. It's about the presidency and the powers of the presidency. How did Mr. Trump's legal team argue that he should be immune from criminal charges relating to his efforts to overturn the election? What was the case they made in court today?
Trump's lawyer, John Sauer, made a number of arguments. One is that the role of judges to review some of these issues should be, in his view, very limited. Another essential argument he made was that presidents can only be prosecuted if they've already been impeached and convicted by the U.S. Senate, even in the most extreme of circumstances. And Sauer also pointed out that were these judges to disagree and open an avenue for criminal liability for former presidents, that it would open the floodgates to lots of recriminations and tit for tat from administration to administration of differing political parties.
And the judges peppered Trump's legal team with questions trying to test this immunity theory, with one judge asking if a president could order the killing of a political rival and get away with it as an official act.
Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first. And
so your answer is no.
My answer is qualified yes. There's a political process that would have to occur under the structure of our Constitution, which would require impeachment and conviction by the Senate.
So, Carrie, there's no precedent here. Donald Trump is the first former president to face criminal charges. What will inform these judges' ruling?
Well, history is a guide here, Jeff. You know, no former president has been charged, but former President Richard Nixon did accept a pardon from his successor, Gerald Ford, which acknowledges some sense of criminal liability on his behalf and concern about a potential criminal action. And one of the judges in this case, Michelle Childs, also asked Trump's lawyer in this case why Trump's lawyer in the impeachment over January 6th conceded that he shouldn't be impeached there, but that there should be a role for the justice system to play criminally thereafter. Judge Childs couldn't get the lawyer to understand the distinction there or acknowledge it. And so there is a real contradiction that judges were grappling with today over the sweeping nature of Trump's arguments versus the reality on the ground and some of these very extensive hypotheticals.
And Carrie, you mentioned earlier that Trump's lawyers argued that prosecuting Mr. Trump would open a Pandora's box of indicting former presidents for actions they took while in office. How did the special counsel's team respond to that argument in particular?
The special counsel lawyer, James Pierce, basically said, this has never happened before in a couple of hundred years of American history. And the reason it's happened now is because of the unprecedented actions of former President Donald Trump, who now faces two federal indictments, this one in D.C. over January 6th and another in Florida over materials he allegedly refused to return to the FBI and stored at his resort in really unsecure areas of that facility, Mar-a-Lago. And so James Pierce said that were the court to accept Trump's view of his sweeping power, even post-presidency, it would present a really frightening, astonishingly frightening future for the country, that presidents would have a license to commit crimes and get away with it, basically.
We should note that Donald Trump attended this hearing today. It's an indication of how his campaign strategy is intertwined with his court appearances. You see a courtroom sketch of him there. What was it like inside the courtroom?
You know, Trump entered a few minutes before the hearing began, around 9:30. He was relatively quiet. He wrote some notes to his attorneys. The only thing people could hear him say was, should I sit here or is this where I sit, to his legal team? And he held his fire until after he left the courthouse. He went to a hotel and then raised concerns about the political nature of his prosecution. Of course, there's no evidence that the current president, Joe Biden, played any role in this case, none whatsoever.
And a ruling could come within days, as I understand it, from this 3-judge panel. What happens next? The losing side appeals to the Supreme Court?
That's right. But in some ways, delay is Donald Trump's friend, even if he loses here. And so it matters how quickly the court directs him to act to take up an appeal either with the full D.C. Circuit Appeals Court or at the Supreme Court. Remember, this trial was set to start March 4th. That seems unlikely now, but prosecutors do want to get it going before the election. And how quickly the appeals court rules and what they say Trump can and can't do next could determine whether Trump faces any trials before November.
NPR's Carrie Johnson. Always a pleasure to speak with you, Carrie. Thanks so much.
Thank you.